Okay, we're gonna learn about, as I said, React use reducer. Okay, use reducer is a hook, a React hook that lets you add a reducer to your component. Let's go over some slides first, right? So React use state and use reducer. In React, both use state and use reducer are hooks used for managing state. Both of them are used for the same purpose, to manage a state, all right? But they serve different purposes and are suited to different scenarios. They have different use cases, but virtually we can use both of them to manage our state in our components. Okay, use state is a hook, as we know that is primarily used for managing simple local state within a functional component. It is best suited for handling individual state values or when managing simple interactions. Constant state, set state, use state, initial value. We provide initial value, right? The current state value is the state and set state is the function used to update the state, and initial value is the initial state value for the state. It's a lot of state. All right, when do we use state? We use state, use state when the state logic is straightforward, when we are managing a small number of state values or individual pieces of state, an example, form input, a checkbox, a toggle, etc., all right, or count, etc. No complex updates or interdependent changes are needed. An example, right, we have a counter component that increments or decrements based on a button click. It's very simple counter component, right? We have constant count with the use state, and we're providing the initial value as a 0, and we have a couple increment and decrement functions, okay? And we can set, we can change the count based on those functions, and 2 buttons to increase the button, to increase the count. So this code is, the count state is straightforward and use state handles it perfectly. React use reducer. So use reducer is a hook designed for managing more complex state logic, especially when multiple actions or transitions are involved. It is commonly used when the state depends on more than just simple assignments. Okay, simple assignments. An example, when the next state is based on the previous state and action type. This is the setup for use reducer. Okay, just like use state, we have constant state. We don't have set state, but we have dispatch. Okay, these names can be anything, but the recommended way of naming things for the React has been like state and dispatch. And we use the React hook, use reducer, and use reducer accepts 3 arguments. Okay, a reducer, it's a callback function, which we will define a little bit later. And we, at the same time, we have initial argument, and at the same time, we have init. Right? The state is, the current state dispatch is a function. Okay, this is dispatch, a function that triggers an action to change the state. Now, dispatch is similar to what functions do we have over here. Increment is a function. Decrement is a function too. Okay, so increment is a function that triggers incrementing the count, and decrement is at the same time, right, is a function that triggers the action, the type of decrement. Okay, and the reducer, a function that determines how state changes in response to those actions. In response to those actions. Initial argument, just like we provide initial value for each state that we define, it's the same thing. Initial argument, the value from which the initial state is calculated. Okay, initial argument will be assigned to state, and that's the initial value for the state. All right, and the init, the last argument, is optional, the initializer function that should return the initial state. Cool. So let's take a look. So let's take a look at the use case for use reducer. All right. What we can, oh, so we're sorry. Let's finish up this one first. Initial, init optional. So this is how use reducer works. In the component right over here, we have an event. This is where we start. In the component, we have event handler. Okay. That event can be anything. The event being is that there's a button that we're clicking to increase the count, for instance, or there's a button that we are decreasing the count, or there's a button that we are resetting the count back to 0. Okay. The first thing that we do is when we click it, right, we're basically dispatching that click. What kind of action we are trying to do when we click the button? When we click the button, inside that function, we run dispatch, right? We are dispatching an increment or decrement or reset. That action is what we call the event type. It's not like a click event or change event or key up event. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what we are planning to do when we click the button. If there's an increment button, that action becomes increment action. If there is decrement or if there is a delete button, that action becomes delete. Remember the students, the students list we did the CRUD application. Okay, create. When we click add new student, that add new student becomes an action for add new student action. Delete, same thing. Update, same thing. Or modify, same thing. Okay. So those are the actions, and we dispatch those actions. We basically trigger those actions. And when we dispatch it, right, dispatch comes over here and it will dispatches the action object. I mean, it can be action object, or it can be just a string by itself. When we do the example, you guys will definitely understand that, okay? And that when we dispatch it, it will send to the reducer function, right? This dispatching, this is a function, as we said, a function that triggers an action to change the state. So when we dispatch something, some sort of action, it will send it down to the reducer. It will send the next state to the reducer. And from this reducer, we will decide what we can do. We can identify what type of action it is. Is it increment, is it decrement, or is it reset? And based on that action type, we can generate a new state, right? And then return a new state back to the state, and our UI will be updated. Once the reducer does its logic inside its function, the state will be updated and the component will re-render just like we have use state, right? Use state, when we click, oh, sorry. In the use state, right over here, this right here. In the use state, we do set count +1. We update the state and we re-render. The same logic, but in this case, we include a reducer function for the use reducer, right? For the use reducer, we will include a reducer function, and it will decide which action type we are sending out, and based on that, it will return new state, and our component will re-render based on the new state. You just try to remember this diagram over here. Event handler will dispatch an action object. An action object will send out that action object to reducer, and based on that action type, we update the state and send it back to the component, and the component will re-render our component itself. All right. So when we can use reducer, you can use reducer virtually anywhere you would use state. Okay, so virtually, guys, it's not like which one do you recommend to use or etc. I mean, if your state logic is very complex, there's a lot of moving parts, moving pieces, then it is definitely highly recommended to use reducer, or of course in a large projects, highly recommended to use some sort of state management tool like React Redux. Okay, it will definitely highly recommended to use reducer if your state logic is all right. Use reducer when the state logic is complex or involves multiple sub values. State transitions need to be managed through actions. An example: adding items to a list, toggling a complex structure. Right. You want a more structured approach to state updates, especially in cases where you would otherwise use multiple use state calls. Any questions so far?
No.
Cool. Cool. So we'll try to do a very simple application here. All right. Let's go back over here. This is my starting point. Nothing special. Need to delete the whole thing that I have over here. Okay, so we're not going to focus on use state. We're going to focus on use reducer. In here, I would like to have a button. And button, I can say increment. All right, let's try to do the counter. Okay, we're gonna have paragraph with the count, and we're gonna type count over here. But as we said, constant state dispatch. Okay, and we're gonna use reducer, comes from React itself. Okay, so now we're gonna put reducer function over here. I mean, you can put the function itself directly over here, but we prefer to write the name over here, reducer, and initial value. Okay, initial argument or initial value, whatever you would like to put, that's fine. Use reducer is usually preferable to use state when you have complex state logic that involves multiple sub-values. It also lets you optimize performance for components that trigger deep updates because you can pass a dispatch down instead of callbacks. All right. So we're going to have a function and reducer. You can name this function anything you want, right? But it's just in the documentation, they say that reducer, but it can be anything. Reducer function, reducer, whatever you would like to call. All right, so this reducer function will have a state and action. Okay, state and action. This initial value for the state, if you understand the logic behind this used reducer, this is very similar to React Redux. Okay, this logic is very similar to React Redux. So now, initial value, since we put the reducer over here, if you put the whole thing, callback function right inside over here, basically this initial value will be assigned to this state. That's the initial value. Okay, and this basically is initial value will be assigned. It will return this initial value. And this initial value is basically over here, but initial value constant, you can define initial value over here. Initial value, let's assume that we're just doing the count, okay? Usually, when we put the initial value, since we're talking about the complex state state values, right? So initial value we usually put as an object. I mean, you can definitely put as 0, and initial value will be for the count or the increment h, etc. But for now, initial value we can just put count is equal to 0, right? Is equal to 0. And now this initial value and this state is basically this object, right? This state, our state right here, is basically this object. And if I would like to put this count, how do I put it? I need to put state.count. Okay, this initial value will be assigned to the state, and this state is basically an object. And inside the object, I have count. Now, for this initial value, you guys can definitely add additional state variables that you can put over here, like form data is equal to the form data that contains name, full name, last name, etc. age. Okay, so the whole state variables can be put into initial value, and then this initial value will be assigned to the state. All right, so basically, our state variable will contain all of the state variables that you can define using useState. If you use useState, you would do constant count and set count. useState is equal to 0. Constant to-dos, set to-dos, right, is equal to useState null or empty array, and form data, etc. one at a time. But with the use reducer, we can keep them all together in one place. And if we have to, we can update the specific parts based on the dispatch, the dispatch action we're trying to trigger. The dispatch action we're trying to trigger, we can definitely update the specific state inside our state. But again, this is initial value. This init, right? Init function is used for specific purposes. Like okay, so this function you can put, but this one is just optional. We can take a look into that later. But for now, let's focus on this one. All right, so the count, state.count, we have increment, we have decrement, and we also have, let's just say, reset. Cool. So for the increment, we definitely can put on click, right? I mean, all of them should have on click. All right. Usually, what we put over here, we put set count. All right, set count, and if we put the count plus 1, and for others, count minus 1, and this one, count is equal to 0, or just set count is equal to 0. But we don't have set count. What we have instead is dispatch. We have dispatch. It's a function. Inside the function, right? Inside the function, we can provide the action type. And here, increment. Okay, increment. So now, this whole thing, we can copy over here and bring it right over here. Okay, decrement. This is going to be reset. All right. So as we said, when we dispatch some action, we're actually sending that action to our reducer. All right. So now, as soon as we dispatch something, some sort of action, we're basically calling this reducer. Okay, we're basically calling this reducer over here. Let me just pull to the right side a little bit. This function over here, reducer function. Now this reducer function, let's try to console log it. Console.log state and action. Action state. All right, action and state. So if I click increment, cannot read properties of undefined reading count. Okay, just don't focus on the errors, okay? But right over here we have state, right? As you guys can see, the state contains this state right here. When I click my dispatch with the increment, I'm basically invoking this function over here. Under the hood, when we dispatch something, React lets us to run this reducer function. And when we run it, it will pass down which action we are clicking or doing something in the UI. Which action? It will pass down to this action right here. Now, as you guys can see, the state contains count 0, form data, blah, 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 whatever we had in the initial value. And the action is increment right here. Right? Refresh the page. But if I click decrement, same thing. The action is decrement. Most of the time, we might have to send some data with this dispatch, right? With this dispatch, including the type of the action we're trying to invoke here, trigger. Now in here, I cannot do like this, some sort of a data. I'm sending some ID is equal to 100. Okay, because this dispatch function only takes one argument, and that is action. Right? That action can be a regular string, okay, or we can do this the whole thing as an object. You can send anything actually, right? You can send anything. I mean, the first item in the thing can be increment. The next item can be basically like an ID, right? So 100. You can send anything. So if I refresh the page, if I click increment, as you guys can see right here, I have state and I have action. The action is an object right here with the first item is the action type. And the second item is the ID of, let's say you are trying to view the to-do that has an ID of 100. But the recommended way of dealing with sending the data as an action is, they say, as an object. So this action, when we are dispatching something, we're sending as an object. For the object, we put type, and that's going to be the action type is increment. And the second key value is the payload. The payload is, let's say, 100. Right? So we can put anything over here, but whatever they're using in the documentation is the payload. The payload is the data that you can send to your reducer function. All right. But in here, when we are dispatching increment decrement, we don't have to send any payload. But just in case, if you like to delete a student with ID 100, and when we are clicking a delete function, right, it's the delete button for that user, we can dispatch, right? In this case, it's going to be type delete, and the payload will be the ID of that user. At the same time, you edit your information in the form, and you are clicking submit submit the button for the form. And inside your submit function, when you are dispatching, you can send all of the data related to the user that's fill out all the information as a payload. Okay. In this case, like a form data, you fill it out form data, and you can send this form data as a payload to the reducer function. and reducer function will handle based on the action type. All right, so we'll come to the point where we use payload, but for now we have only type increment. All right, so how do I do this? How do I do this? Cool. Okay, type increment, type decrement. We have two options to deal with these action types. Right, this action is, as we said, is basically this object that we are sending, right? This object that we are sending, that's an action. And inside it, we have type, whatever action we are triggering when we are clicking each button. Increment, decrement, blah, blah, blah. Okay? We have two options to deal with these action types. So the first one would be put switch. Okay? The first one would be put switch. So now, for this guy, we can put switch. Switch rapid. So based on the switch, action dot type. Okay, based on the switch, action dot type. So we can have some cases. If the case is increment, then do this. All right. We have to return the updated value of the state. Okay, we have to return the updated value of the state. So now you guys remember that what value am I updating for the state right now? Only the count. All right. How do I make sure that I also keep all of these the remaining values inside my state?
Operator.
Exactly. Yep. So this is gonna be new object. Inside the new object, I would like to do state. All right. And now I can update the specific part of that state. In this case, only the count. Right. If I had another action that type, right, for let's say for to-dos, delete to-dos, I could have do to-dos like this and then deal with the to-dos. But for now, with the increment action type, we are increasing the count only. All right. So it's going to be state that count. The state that count is coming from here, right? And +1. Now, when we are returning, this is going to be our new state. This is going to be our new state. So this return statement belongs to this reducer function. And this, whenever we are returning a new state value, it will be reassigned back to the state, and our component will be re-rendered, and our UI will be repainted based on the new value that we have inside the state. That's how the cycle continues on this reducer, use reducer, okay? Increment event is happening. We are dispatching increment action object, right? Dispatch action object. It triggers the reducer and dispatches the action object to the reducer. And reducer will do a switching or if else statement, and it will update the state. And the state comes back to the component, and component will re-render and show the new state in the UI. For now, we'll just do for increment only. Cool. So let's try to increment the value now. Increment, as you guys can see, we are incrementing the value. Right? When I click it, I'm dispatching this type increment. It comes to the reducer, and action that type is equal to increment, and the switch will find the increment case, and it will return new state. When I return a new state, I'm basically returning to this guy right here. And as soon as my new state will be returned, my component will re-render, and UI will be repainted with the new state values. Same thing for decrementing. So increment and decrement, in this case, state that count -1. Right? Decrementing is decreasing, incrementing is increasing. What's going to be for, what's going to be for reset? It's going to be just back to 0, right? Count is equal to 0, as it was in the initial value. Save it. We have typed decrement, increment, reset. Now let's see if it works. Right, so decrementing, incrementing, and if I click reset, it will set back to 0.
Azamat,
Yes.
instead of state count -1, can we just put the -1? I'm just interesting, like, is it gonna work or no?
-1, like instead of state that count, like this?
Yeah, is it gonna work or no?
But you are statically setting it, setting it.
No,
You are
I
not.
understand. I'm just like curious if it's work or no.
Oh yeah, of course. Why not? It will definitely work. Look, decrementing, right? I'm incrementing now. As soon as I decrement it, this 11 becomes -1 again directly. That's it. I'm not doing anything else. I'm clicking decrement right now. Every time
Okay.
I click, it's just setting it to -1, just like 0, right? 0.
Yeah, I got it. I was just curious how it's gonna work. Okay. Got it.
Azamat, the state you are just copying, just because that let's say that if you want to include the other like to-dos and form data, but if it's the case that if you don't want, then it's just the count.
You're talking about this guy right here?
Yeah.
Basically, what it's doing here, right? What it's doing is
Copying.
basically copying these guys over here. It's actually copying all of them, right? It's
Yeah.
actually copying all of them, right? All of them like this. But you guys remember, since this count has the last, it will override whatever we have the count over
Yeah.
here. Okay? And if this count comes first, what's going to be our thing? If this count comes first, then I have count over here. Which count will apply? If I have state over here.
The what that comes the last always will overwrite the first one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, I'm not increasing it right now. I'm clicking increment, it's not increasing it. Decrement should work, but increment, it's not working. So that's why always put if you like to see the updated count, you have to put always at the end of the object. So now incrementing should work, decrementing is also working, and reset is also working. I mean, this whole thing, right? This whole thing can be done as we had this guy right here. Increment, decrement, and reset functions over here, and just put it over there. Okay, but React is providing us another way to deal with the state variables using use reducer. All right, this one is a single line of code, but over here we are putting all of the state variables that we have as an initial value, and with the help of the reducer function, we are dealing with those values. All right, so in the case of default, we usually return the state itself. can just return the state itself.
Mhm. So
We don't have to put the because we're not updating anything. Yes.
So we're learning the reducer just for like for the future to understand the redux, right? Not just for the
The redux, yeah, the redux will be very similar to this one. Yes. So we have, we're gonna have a reducer, and we're gonna have the redux setup just like this.
Yeah, not just for the counter, right? Because like using the
Oh, no, not for the counter.
counter.
Yes, is an example. No, not for the counter though. No.
Yeah, I get it.
Azamat,
Yes.
can you explain the type? Can you please scroll down a little bit? Scroll down. That dispatch you are sending that like the object with a key type and the value increment.
Mhm.
So in that case, you are doing like this. It's because our state is the object itself. Yeah, like, can you, for example, without type, without key type, just send the value?
So
Or
yeah, as I said,
you
right?
are doing this only because you have the initial value as the object, and in order to
No,
work with
no. This object is not related to the initial value. This is just an action type. As I said before, right? You can definitely provide the type itself like this.
yeah,
Okay. But yeah, you can definitely provide like this, decrement and the type of reset.
and
right?
then instead of action
Here,
dot type,
you
just
just,
action.
yeah, you can just remove type. Yes, that's it.
It's still gonna work, right?
Yeah, of course, it's still gonna
You
work.
do like this. That's why like the
But
type is making new for me.
yes, the thing is that sometimes we have to add some data with this when we are dispatching it. As I said, dispatch does not allow as a second argument like this. Okay, so we have action. If I try to console log the action, increment, okay, action increment. That's it. It is only reading the first argument. That's it. It's not reading the second argument. You see right here, it's only reading this string because this dispatching this refers to this action over here. But where's my 100? I passed as a second argument 100. You would expect that it will print out increment and 100 next to each other. No. But as I said, if you put them as a single value inside the array, as an array, save it. Now increment, as you guys right here, it's an array. Inside we have action type increment and 100. Okay, action type increment and 100. So action is an array. So I can select the 0 index, which is an increment state, right? Increment the action. I can still be able to increase my count. All right.
During yes, when we do the object, we also could send the key pair value like several times, right?
Oh yeah. So yeah. So if in this case, if you don't want to use, I mean, it is recommended to use an object which we can add the type, right? Increment at the same time the payload. The payload you are sending when you are clicking something or some sort of action is being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now if I click increment, as you guys can see, the type is increment, and the payload is 100. Now you can do anything with the payload 100, like delete the student ID with 100 or update the student ID with 100 over here,
Mm-hmm.
or filter out the student ID with 100 and return back. Basically, it's just deleting it. Okay. This is how we do. So it is recommended to, I mean, it's based on, it is based on the requirement of your project. The thing about, guys, I see that you, Maqsad, I see that you sent in the code in the chat, right? So using a use state, we're updating our state variables inside this component. But use reducer is allowing us to update our state variables outside our component. All right, outside our component.
What will give us that option to update outside of component?
At the same time, what we can do here is that I would like to teach you guys. Do you guys know how to create a custom hook in React applications? Let's try to understand our custom hook. But before we do that, I need 3 minutes. Right? I will be right back, guys. Give me like 3 minutes.
Hmm.
All right, I'm back. So let's talk about custom hooks. Now, when we talk about custom hook, we know that these use state, use reducer, use memo, all of them are React hooks, and they start with use. All right. We can also create our custom hook, but it has to start with use. Okay. It has to start with use. The reason is that sort of if we are using some sort of other React built-in hooks, right? Use state, use reducer, that function, that regular custom function that is holding those React hooks has to start with use. Otherwise, you cannot use any type of React hook inside that function. What I mean by that is, let's come over here. We're gonna say hooks. Let's open up a hooks folder. Okay, and we're going to create a file called custom.js. In here, I'm going to say function, my function. All right. You know what? Let me just do export constant, my function, and this is my function. Constant.log. Hello. And right over here, I will be calling my function. Okay. My function is invoked over here, right? Imported over here. Import my function from hooks custom. I put it right here. And as soon as I import it, I'm calling that function. And as you guys can see, refresh the page, hello is printing out. All right, hello is printing out. But inside this function, if I would like to use a React hook, this is going to be the error. Constant count, set count is equal to use state, okay, is equal to 0. As you guys can see, React hook use state is called in function my function that is neither a React function component nor a custom React hook function. React component must start with an uppercase letter, and React hook names must start with the word use. Okay, so we can use these use state, use reducer, use memo, any type of React hook inside the component, right? Inside the component that starts with the capitalized letters. That's the React component. We can use these React hooks, built-in hooks. But if it's a regular function with the small letters, then React is not going to allow us. As soon as I change this to my, which becomes a component, and I cannot call my component, right? I cannot call my component like this. I cannot call that. I have to call my component like this. My function. Okay, I have to call my component like this. I cannot call my component like this in React applications. And my components should return something like a JSX. right? In here, it's not returning anything. It's just console logging it, and it's giving an error. It's not even console logging it, because it is expecting some sort of a JSX to be returned from my function component. But again, if it is a regular function, did I delete my function over here? Damn it. If it's regular function, in order to use useState or React hook, okay, our function name has to start with use. All right, so it has to start with use my function. Now it is allowed to use this one. All right, so in here we have a count, set count, use state 0. You guys remember this code from here, right? Increment, decrement, and we have on click increment, decrement. First of all, I would like to show you guys with the use state, and then we can switch to use reducer. All right. So what am I returning over here is that constant increment. Okay, increment is equal to it's a function, right? Set count plus 1. Same thing for decrement and reset. Decrement and reset. Okay, so as a return value, I can return this increment. Whoa. Increment, decrement, and reset. Oh, at the same time, I have to return the count. Okay, I have to return the count. So now, when I'm getting these values, right? When I'm getting these values, so let's just forget about, I'm going to do this one. Okay, as for use reducer. What I would like to do is, I'm going to do without the use reducer for now. Come on. Without the initial value, as I have it in the copy. Cool. So in here, constant. Oh. Okay, constant count, increment, decrement, reset is coming from where? Use my function. I just invoke use my function. Okay, I just invoke my function. Use my function is the hook that is coming from where? From my hooks.custom, and use reducer, remove it. And increment, I can just put right over here. Same thing for decrement, same thing for reset. Refresh the page. Now, when my component loads up in the DOM, right, starting from top to bottom, I am invoking this use my function. Basically, we are going back to, right, basically we are going back to this use my function, and we are running from top to bottom. And we are creating our state variable. All of these functions will be created, and we're just returning those state variables, right? Count and all of these functions. Okay, as soon as we invoke this use my function inside my component, it will run through top to bottom, and it will return these values. And basically, we're coming back to this left side, right? We're just destructuring it and grabbing those variables from this return value and applying those in the UI. Our component is rendered, and we're putting our count. Okay, as you guys can see, 0 popped up, and all the buttons will have the functions related to each other. right? So if I click this increment, as you guys can see, we are basically isolated our code inside a function, inside its file. But you cannot do it if you do useState over here. Now we have custom hook that should start with use so that we can run any type of React hook inside our function. Right? If you are creating regular function, that function has to start with use so that you can use any type of React custom built-in hook. React built-in hooks. Okay, so everything is working fine. We basically removed all the functions that I have over here from the component and put it into our own custom hook. Right, everything's working fine. What's wrong with the decrement? Oh, we didn't change it. I was like, what? Count, we're just basically returning 0. And actually, we don't need this, right? Basically, just resetting the value. Incrementing, yes. Decrementing, yes. Decrementing, 0, yes. Any questions?
So the main criteria is that our function start with a small capital letter, right? With a small letter.
It's our custom hook function has to start with use, not a small letter.
Oh,
It has
okay.
to start with use, just like the use state.
I got you.
It has to start with use. It cannot start with anything else. Be smaller letters, and it has to be a use. That's the keyword, use.
So this custom hook we only need when we need to, like, kind of, how to say, then we wanted our custom hook to be outside of our component, the app.jsx.
Yes. So
Can you tell me what's the reason, like, why we want this one? Like, what's the advantages to keep our, like, the hooks outside of our app component?
we're basically trying to eliminate some code from our component.
It will be cleaner.
Yes, it's going to be definitely cleaner, and we're basically isolating the code over here. It's going to be easier to debug the issues.
Since, like, that use how was it, reducer, it's kind of same, that we are, like, having that our code outside of our app component as well, like here, right? Like the similarities between the custom hook and user.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So the reason why we
Definitely, yes.
want is, like, to make it more clear our code.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
Right. You
Now
can play around with your function too. This is gonna act like a regular function, right? If I put the 0 over here, okay, and I can come down here, I can put initial value and put this initial value for my use state over here. Okay, now this use my function looks like our use state. Okay, so
Okay.
it looks like our use state. We're providing the initial value as a use state 0. Okay, and then when we invoke this function, we're just providing this initial value, which is 0 initially, and then we're just putting it into the use state. So now it should work as expected. The same thing. There's no difference. But in here, we don't have to start with 0. Okay, additional things, and we just start with 0 right over here. Now, basically, what we did over here is that usually we had everything like this inside our component. Okay, like this. And everything should work fine. If I do state, everything should work fine. Incrementing, decrementing, and reset, etc. But we're just eliminating the whole thing from this component and creating a custom hook and keeping our logic inside the file over here. It does the same thing, right? When we invoke it, we need to go to the function and run whatever the contents of that function from top to bottom and return this value, right? We're just returning it and then running this return value. Okay, console.log app beginning. Okay, and I'm going to custom over here, use my function beginning, use my function Oops, sorry, right over here. I have to do right over here. Use my function ending. Of course, if I can type it, and app returning. Okay, so refresh the page. Let me remove my, it's a little bit confusing. Refresh the page. As you guys can see, at beginning, right, at beginning, and now we call the function, and when you go inside the function, use my function beginning, we run basically top to bottom, use my function ending, and we're coming back to the app.jsx, and we're just console logging this app returning. App is returning this guy right here.
Can you please go to the custom JS one more time, please?
Yes.
Mhm. Okay.
So it's in the end it will return to up.
Yeah, of course, yeah. At the end, it will return it back to the app.js. So at
Okay.
beginning, we're starting from top to bottom, and we are invoking function, right? When you invoke the function, we need to go to the function, right? And then
Yes,
go
yes, yes.
everything that and the inside the function. So use my function beginning. We're starting from top to bottom. We're just creating a state variable. We have all the functions created, and use my function ending, right? That's it. And when we are returning, we're returning all the values that we created over here. We have to return the count because we need to display the count in the UI and all of the functions that can be used when we are clicking each individual button. When you come back, so we're just grabbing those return values from this function invocation and using these values in the UI. It will work, right? Why is it keep printing out? Because increment, well, this increment is basically inside our custom, right? Since we are, that's the thing with the JavaScript, right? We are returning something from our use my function hook. And if I click this increment on this on click, then I will go back to my custom and I will run this thing over here. And when I run this thing over here, basically I'm updating my count. And when we update the count, our component will be re-rendered. As you guys can see, every time I click it, our component is starting from top to bottom again. Our component is re-rendering, okay? And we have the latest count and we're displaying in over here. All right, this is for custom is for use my function. Export constant, use my function 2 maybe for our reducer. Save it. I want to put the hooks, right? Custom, let's just name it as 1 and custom to JS, put for use reducer. Okay, use my function from custom 1. It automatically updated over here as they're related to each other. I don't need these console.logs anymore. This is gonna be F1. I'm gonna put it inside the hooks over here. F1 is using custom 1. Now F2 is gonna use our use reducer. So for this one, I'm gonna put 2. Okay. And Custom 1 is gone. Custom 2 is our thing. Okay, so in app.js, let's talk about our custom hook over here, right? This is going to be our use reducer. Now it's going to be exact same thing as we did before. We're going to have constant reducer function. Okay, we will not have anything related to these guys, right? Reducer function. So now we can use constant state dispatch
and
and
then
use reducer, and we can put reducer function. Okay, and you can put
initial.
initial value, or you can just put the object itself directly. Right? You can create initial value. Oh my goodness, constant initial value, a new variable name, and put the object over here, and put the name of the variable over here, like this. And as we know that we have to return state and dispatch. Okay, we have to return state and dispatch. And inside our reducer, what I would like to do is come to my copy and grab the whole thing over here. This dispatch over here. As we said, the reducer will accept state and action. Reducer will accept state and action. And based on the action that type, okay, let's just put action that type. We return the latest state, and our component will re-render.
Then you
Okay.
also need to write type.
Yes, for all of these, we have to type type yes. For this guy, so we are returning, what we are returning? State and dispatch. As you guys can see, we're not using use reducer, and we're not putting a reducer function and initial value. We are using our custom hook that we created over here. So now it's state dispatch, and it's going to be state.count, and all of these functions we have to do increment. Oh, sorry, dispatch, sorry. Dispatch and put type increment. Of course, as a string.
Yeah.
Same thing for all functions over here. Decrement and reset. As you guys can see, it is still working fine as expected. We are increasing, we are decreasing, and we are resetting. Now, what do you guys think? Did our component shrink compared to this guy right here? Right? The use reducer logic, everything is over here inside this component. But with the help of our custom hook, we were able to extract this use reducer logic and put it into its own file. And from here, we are running everything from here. Now we have very simple component, and we are running our own function. And as a return value, we're getting state and dispatch. The state and dispatch, the same thing as we are returning over here. This is actually what the React is doing under the hood there, right? When we are using use state over here, we're providing 0, and under the hood, basically React has something like this, like a custom hook, which is called use state, and it's accepting initial value as a 0, and it does some logic, all right, and it returns the state and the set state functions. That set state function will update the state and etc. Okay, so any questions related to custom hook and use reducer?
Azamat, Can we use the instead of switch the if else? Just make sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's try to use if else instead of switch. It's actually very straightforward what we can do here, right? Let me just call it
Type equal increment.
register 1. I will just copy paste and I'm going to use register 2. This register 2 will be with the with if else statement. Okay, so what we call here if action type is equal to increment. Okay, and we can return the same thing. Return value will be exact same thing. Okay, else if action type is decrement, same thing. Else, just return the state itself. I'm gonna remove these guys from here. So it's gonna be increment and oh my goodness, let me bring it back. I need those return values. Decrement and reset. All right, so return value for this guy is going to be this guy. Return value for the reset is going to be this guy right here. And we already got the other one. Oh, no, don't do that. Cool. So if action type increment, then return this one. Action type is decrement, return this one. If action type reset is return state count 0. And we are using reducer 2. So what is wrong? We're not, we defined it, but we're not using it. That's the problem. So increment and decrement and reset. Everything is working fine as expected. We did not change the function name. We only changed the reducer function's name. And this reducer 2 is working with if else statement.
It's like how you want it, like you want to use if else. It's not about like the React recommended use the switch or all this stuff, no?
No, you can use both of them.
Okay. Okay, just make sure.
The documentation says that we can definitely use both of them.
Okay.
But this like if you the line 26, if you are gonna not, if you don't want gonna like use the type, okay, so we don't need to use type, right? It's still gonna work.
Which one?
The line 26.
Oh, as I said, in the component we're providing the
Yeah, I
the
mean you don't need to this is
object is this object is the action, right? When it
yeah.
comes over this object, and we're just but yeah, if you don't want to use, as I said, if you don't want to use object, you can just type as a string this action type.
Okay.
And in here you have to type just action by itself like this.
Okay.
It
Okay.
will just take compare the action with increment. Okay.
Cool.
How cool is that, right? We are able to
That's
create our
cool.
custom hook. This custom hook logic is very important. Oh, yes. 6:30. Let's take 10 minutes break, guys. All right, and we'll continue. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is we can work on our to-dos application that we did in React. and convert that to use reducer. And I know that our to-dos application will contain some, excuse me, some data that we can pass as a payload. All right, payload, and we can do something with those payloads in our reducer function over here. Okay, let me check. I'm still sharing screen. Okay. Do you guys remember the demo project that we did? Reduce. That's different. Collection. Dump startup collection. Okay. Combine it. React demo projects. Do I have it over here? Projects. React to-do list. Oh, cool. Looks like we have it over here. All right, so I can copy paste the whole thing. React demo projects. Let me see if I have it on here. My terminal. Desktop. Demo apps. CTech. You know what? I'll just get this guy. I think I deleted it, so. Kind of slow. CD desktop git clone and code React demo projects. What I want from here is this guy right here. To do app.js x, okay, and paste it over here. And no, what am I doing? Yeah, that's for different thing. Yeah, sorry guys. This is what I wanted. Oh, we did it in a class? Interesting, interesting.
Yeah, we did it already with the React, and you say to finish it, so as a homework, so we finished it.
Oh, that was as a homework. You guys finished as a homework.
We just did it with the use state, I guess.
Let me see if I can pull it off now.
Oh,
Right?
no, it's a class component. We did it with the class component, yeah. In the beginning.
Okay, I think it's going to be a good practice to convert this class component into a functional component for us too. I hope it's not going to take too much time for us. Still have count. Yep, that's fine. Okay, cool. So I got this one, and I just need to get this guy right here and put it right. Of course, I don't have components. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I didn't had a chance to make it ready for us. All right, what did we set for this guy is, where's my FJ6? Is the copy? Oh, it's over here. You come over here, convert this guy to FJ6. Yeah. Lots of problems, right? Lots of problems. So what do we do initially? Constant export, right? Export, not export default constant. Constant app is equal to this guy right here. And I would like to use reducer. Okay, I would like to use reducer, and the returning value has to be exact same thing, right? Whatever I'm returning from here, this whole thing, I can grab it. It's not coming. Okay, I can grab it. And put it right over here. This is what I'm returning. Edit ID null, value 1, value 2. I think these were initial data. Oh, these were example. Okay, these were example. We don't need those guys. So these were example. What we need here is that edit ID and to-dos. Okay, so basically I can grab this guy, cut it out, and right over here, constant initial value is equal to this object. Okay, why is not doing it right now? Constant initial value. Okay, it's complaining about app. Okay, so I grabbed the this whole thing, right? I don't need these guys. So we will worry about these functions a little bit later. We don't have to then. Okay, cool. I just need this export people. All right. So initial value is fine. And inside my constant app, what I need? Constant state, at the same time dispatch. Okay. And we need to use reducer with the reducer function. Oops. Okay. All right. What I would like to use, I would like to use a custom hook. All right. Custom hook. Save it, close it. Custom 3. Let me just get this guy and put it custom 3. I would like to use custom 3. This custom 3 will contain based on, it doesn't matter which one we use, guys. All right, so I'll just eliminate this if else statement and put this reducer over here and grab this reducer and use my function. Yes. Cool. So let me come back to my dispatch. Instead of use reducer, I use my function from custom 3. All right, use my function from custom 3. Now I have to get this constant initial value to my custom 3. Custom 3, the initial value is going to be this guy. All right, initial value is going to be that guy. Cool. So reducer initial value. Let's come back to our FJSX. State dispatch, use my function. So in terms of state, so to-dos, we can destructure my state over here. Constant to-dos is equal to state. Now I'm able to see my to-dos. At the same time, I need to bring my edit ID. Okay, initially edit ID was null, and I'm grabbing it from my state. All right, state. To-dos edit ID. So for now, we're not going to have a chance to work on this adding a new to-do component. Again, you guys already did that part, and you can definitely put your code logic, and you put your code logic in here so that you can make this functional, right? Since this div that goes over here. Cool. Object.entries, single to do. Edit mode is being decided. Edit mode is being decided based on the edit ID and edit mode. All of these guys right here. All of these guys, handle to do complete, handle to do delete. Okay. What I'm thinking for this one is that we don't need these guys. What we can do is we can pass dispatch action is equal to dispatch function. I can pass dispatch action down to my single to do right over here. Oh my goodness, we have to convert this guy too. It's gonna be fast. Single to do. All right. So in here, dispatch single to do, constant this dot props, whatever I have over here, copy it, bring it right over here. But again, we don't have these guys. Okay. Instead, we're passing from here, we're passing what? The key, no, the key is fine. The value, we're passing the value, and we're passing the ID, and we're passing the edit mode. Dispatch, the value is the text that contains the text completed and ID and edit mode. And when we are rendering, okay, when we are returning, we can just grab this return value all the way down. Just grab this guy and put it right over here. I'm returning this guy. But of course, we should not forget about this custom custom class. And I can remove this class component. All right, I removed the class component. So what I can do here, remove this single to do because it's not there anymore. I can bring back from single to do. Save it. All right, it's complaining that now my app.jsx looks fine for now. But what's complaining about here is that everything, pretty much everything. Okay, so forget about this one right here. We imported, but we're not using it. So right over here, guys, handle, okay, handle to do complete. And we're passing e.target.checkout, and we're passing ID. So instead of running this function, what I can do here, I can dispatch this action. All right, and the type of the action is going to be complete, for example, or just put to do complete. To do complete. All right, and I have to pass some data over here. Okay, and the data I can pass payload.
Lloyd.
And this can be an object, and that object can contain
Ether.
the status, right? The status is going to be either targeted checked, and the ID is going to be the ID itself. Or you can put to do ID. So now I can remove these guys from here. Save it. All right. So basically we removed the handle thing and we are using dispatch action. Okay. And props validation, I can just come down here. It's going to be always there. And again, come to the ESLint config.js, come down here, and right over here, we can put our own thing. So I think I forgot to put this guy right here. Cool. So basically, it did remove that dispatch action thing. So to the type is to do complete, and payload is whatever we put over here. Doesn't have to be status. You can definitely put check it over here. Okay, check it over here. Let me try to do the same thing for others. Not sure what I did over here. I don't know what I have.
This one was about the color. Do you remember the success and secondary, the button? When you click to the save or edit, the color change of the button is also changing.
Oh, we don't need this one for now, right?
Yes, you can delete it.
Cool. Handle edit ID change, guys. Same thing. I will just copy this dispatch over here. Okay, put it down. Right, dispatch action, and for the payload, I'll just put the ID. Okay, to do ID. Now, if you put the payload in the first thing, if you put the payload as an object, right? Try to put all the payloads as an object like this. Because our reducer function will have an action.payload and it has to go, actually it doesn't matter, yeah. Actually, it does not matter because we're gonna find them based on that thing over here, right? So what you guys want to call this one? To do edit ID change? To do edit ID change. And we're passing to do ID. And we just don't need this guy anymore. Oh, I forgot to wrap one more thing. Yep, here we go. Dispatch action. So handle to do delete, same thing. Copy this guy. And instead of this guy, put this guy and payload to do ID. Pass the ID. Cool. What am I missing over here? Oh, in this case, I not using edit mode. Interesting. Single to do line 21. Oh, this that handle input change.
I guess this one is about the editing. When you click edit, you can edit the text and save it.
Understood. So that's still in FJSX, and the handle, which handle is that? Is it in the single to do, I guess? Handle input change, where is it coming from?
It's coming from anywhere.
All right, cool. So again, guys, we're not gonna try to complete the whole thing. What I'm trying to do is I'm gonna apply like deleting it. Okay, deleting it, maybe adding it. We'll try to add a new to do. All right, we can definitely, but the easiest one would be to delete it. Okay, on change this dot oh, it's complaining about this maybe since we don't have this anymore. Anyway, but we still don't have a handle input change.
Azamat,
my-
in FJSX, maybe way over here we have handle input.
Handle input change. I'll just put custom function over here. Just a boilerplate. Okay, don't worry about the handle change and handle input change for now. Handle input change is basically for saving it. Okay. Oh my goodness, all of the bootstrap. I have to bring the bootstrap. Wait, what? Are we using bootstrap for this guy?
Yes.
We are, right? Oh, is it in the no wait, where is my index.js? Index HTML. Bootstrap min. It has to be very easy though. So what I need to do is package JSON. You guys know the package JSON. And I have to do, if I type right over here, guys, if I type bootstrap or
You can just install.
React Bootstrap. You know what? I will use, let me see if I can use React Strap for this one. Okay, so React Strap is Bootstrap for React applications. npm install React Strap, and that's it. npm install React Strap and Bootstrap. I have to install the Bootstrap too over here, right? npm install Bootstrap at the same time, npm install React Strap. So now I can just install both of them at the same time. And it will be installed as a dependency right over here. Come on. Yep, React Strap and Bootstrap are installed. The only thing I need to do is copy this guy and come over to main JSX and put it right over here. There we go. But in this case, it is showing save. What happened there? I think it's problem with this, the edit mode. Do we have to bring it back, I guess? You guys remember edit mode? Yeah.
Yes. It's because the class name button is success. If you change to the secondary, then it's gonna be gray.
But it's displaying the save though. It is displaying the save. Okay, it is displaying the save.
This was supposed to be dynamic, like save or edit.
Yeah, so yep, in this case, instead of only the save over here, only the save, what I need to have is this guy right here. Okay, and then this guy has to be commented out like this. All right, so since I don't have this handle edit ID change, oh, I need to just grab this guy from here and put it right over here for each of them.
But what you could do, you could like only have one button instead of having two.
Yeah, so the functions are the same, right? And handle ID change, the things are the same. But we have to play around with the this class name at the same time this edit, that's it. But in this case, so how do I make sure that I update the success to secondary if it's edit mode and etc.
Based on like the ID, true false, you have it, the completed true false. It's the same like you are doing with a disabled. The logic is same. With the edit mode, yes. It's true, then save. It's not, then edit.
Okay, do I need custom class?
I can send the code. I guess I have it.
No, we're good here. So how do I update this string? So basically, I have to grab this guy, wrap it like this. Okay, oh, sorry. And with the backtick, and instead of success, I have to do edit mode. If edit mode is true, I need to display what? Success. If it is false, I need to display what? Secondary. Same thing for the save. I'll just grab this guy right here and put it. If edit mode is true, then put save. If edit mode is false, then put edit. So I have now single button instead of a bunch of buttons. Okay, it's gonna still work. If I click edit, I mean, we're not doing anything yet right now because we have to change the ID. Cool. So we do have dispatch action, which calls the dispatch with this the things right here. Now, what I need to do, come back over here. I need to grab all of these names first to do complete. Let me grab all of them here. I do have to do complete. I do have to do ID change. Where is my to do delete? Oh, this is not this one. This one is not to do ID change, to do delete. And we're just passing this ID. Okay. So to the ID change and delete.
But
I get my all of the action types. What's the problem?
since you are using the ID for the delete and that for the change as well, is it necessary to have it like two types? Because I guess inside of that type,
Yes, for the action we have action type and action.payload.
okay.
So go back to FJ6. We're dealing with use my function from custom 3. All right, cool. Right over here, we're dealing with initial. Okay, so initial value is that one. We have edit ID null, which is fine, to do's and blah blah blah. And that's why we it's actually working though, right? So because of the fact that we have initial to do's over here, and we sent it to this state, and all of the to do's from here is displayed in the UI. What we need to work on is all of these changes in the action types. So if the action the type is to do complete, excuse me. If the action that type is edit change ID, if the action that type is delete. All right, cool. So let's work on to do delete portion only. If the action type is to do delete, what do we need to do? The thing about is that this case, right? Whatever we're typing under the case, guys, whatever we're typing under the case, if it is like multiple lines of code under the case, we have to somehow wrap it into the curly braces. Okay, it's like you guys remember from our higher order functions, if you have multiple lines of code, we need to somehow
You
wrap
don't-
it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, if it's just a single line of code, in this case, you can just type return and just return the object over here. But what we need to do first is that I'm trying to apply this logic that we had. This guy right here. When we click delete, right? When we click delete, we were just creating a new to-do and deleting it and updating the updating the to-dos in the state. This is what we need to do. Instead of updating it, we will return new to-dos. Okay, so we'll just create a new to-do based on the state. We can definitely use this guy right here. Oops, I need to copy this. Okay, yeah, this one, yeah. So in right over here, I will bring this one inside, and here, constant new to-dos. Actually, not new to-dos, constant new state, right? New state. Okay.
Initial with that to this.
This is going to be state. JSON parse state. Okay, and then we're parsing it back. Now this state is console.log new state.
It's like has the both edit ID into this, right?
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be state to this.
So how does my new state look like right now? If I click this guy, as you guys can see right here, new state looks like, right? It's still from this one right here, null and all of the to-dos. So right now, we should not directly update it over here. Now I cannot do like this. Like somehow I need to go inside the state that to-dos and delete it, right? I need to do that. Or another option might be, do you guys agree for this one? I'm grabbing the state variables and I'm doing to-dos. And right over here, I'm doing state that to-dos, that filter. Okay.
Right.
Filter, and it's going to be individual to-do. If to-do that ID not equal to action that payload that to-do ID. Okay, action that payload that to-do ID is coming from here.
Yeah.
Right here. Action, this action is action, and we're going inside the payload, and inside the payload we have to do that ID, the to-do ID. That's what we are doing over here, to-do ID. And we're comparing it, and if it's then it's deleting it and updating the state. Right? Let's save it. Now click this delete. Cool. State that to do that filter is not a function. Initial value is state that to do's. Oh, so we cannot apply filter because our to do's is an object. So we cannot do filter. Yep. We just cannot do filter, so we have to do the old way. Now, in the case of if this to-dos was an array, then we could have just filtered out and exclude the to-do that has an ID of to-do ID. So in this case, we have to go the old way. So new state, okay. So now I can delete new state, right? Same logic over here. I can delete. Where's my delete? New state to this right here. Okay, so now new state to do ID. Not to do ID, action payload to do ID.
You also need to, your new state is includes the edit ID as well. So then it's supposed to be new state. You are saying that stringify state, but state it's like,
Oh, you're right. Yes. So
Maybe-
so
maybe
it's gonna be state that to do's. Yeah, you're right. new state that to-dos, action payload to-do ID. How about that? Because to-dos is an object. To-dos is an object, and we're selecting based on the ID and deleting whatever the object inside the object.
Okay.
You're right. Yes. So now new state will contain the same things, but in this case, to-dos will not have the to-do that we are deleted already. All right. So now we can just return new state back to our UI. So refresh the page, delete. As you guys can see, it deleted it.
Cool.
Okay. I think this ID change will be very easy too. What we did for the ID change? That's it. Edit ID is equal to do ID. So return, the state will be the state that will contain the to-dos, but what we are changing is edit ID. And that edit ID is going to be, as you guys can tell, action dot payload dot to-do ID. That's it. All right, it's already refreshed. If I click this, you see right here, this one is editable. Click edit. We're changing edit ID. Okay.
Azamat, can you
Yes.
show the direction, the action payload to the ID, how it's like changing? We are saying like edit ID is action payload to the ID. Yeah, I see that action payload to the ID. It's like in our single to do, but how we assign here for this one? Yes, for that second line, that to do ID, this one's ID.
Oh yeah. So
Oh, counts.
in individual, when we deploy, right, the individual single to do, we're grabbing the ID.
Mhm.
Okay. Just like we're passing ID for each misal, for instance, ID like this, it's doing the same thing for dispatch.
From the object entries, I remember now.
Yes,
From
from
the
the object entries over here. Yes. Object
Yes.
entries, key and value. The value contains, right? The value
ID.
contains ID, completed, and something else. ID, the text, completed, and ID.
I just forgot it about this one.
Yes. So it will contain text, completed, and ID. And we're just passing that ID for individual buttons. Now, buttons will keep those ID, right? For these functions inside the onClick, these functions will remember the ID we're assigning it to. And when we click it, this is where we are dispatching this function. And this dispatching this action will remember that ID we assigned it already when we are mounting our DOM, right? Every single component. So as soon as I click it, that ID, it comes with the action payload to do ID, and I'm just assigning it to it, and I'm returning a new state, and the whole component will re-render with the new state. Constant.log. Oops, why am I deleting? Okay, cool. So let me refresh the page. Yep, ID 1, ID 2, ID 3, ID 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So constant nugget over here. It did like a 2 lines of code. Let me try to remove this guy right here. Oops. Did they change this? Refresh the page. Well, it's working fine. I mean, what as per my knowledge, we used to put curly braces under the case if you have multiple lines of code, but in this case, it's working fine. Interesting. Interesting. I guess it will work fine too. If you don't want to confuse yourself, you can definitely put curly braces and include everything inside these curly braces. All right. How can we do this at to-do? Do you guys think you can continue working on it based on this progress that we made?
Yes, I guess.
You can
Cool.
try.
I would like you guys want to start now and finish it? I wanted you guys to work on the thinking in React to try to finish as a group, because you guys started as a group and finish it as a group. And I have another cool project for you guys to complete. You guys know the recursion in JavaScript, right? What do you guys know about recursion?
I have already forgot it.
Yeah, I already, but recursion is the function is calling calling self
Calling itself, yes, that is correct.
like in a loop.
Recursion.
I don't know. For me, it looked like a loop because not like a loop, but for me, yeah, for my brain. But I know recursion is the function is the calling cell inside the function.
Inside the function, yes. So, who can give me an example for recursion?
Fibonacci number.
Fibonacci numbers, yes. Let's just start with simple examples, okay? How about this? Constant array 1. Let's just start with let, because this browser doesn't like the constant. It will complain that your array 1 was already created, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that. So I do have numbers 5. With the help of the recursion, I would like to multiply individual numbers, like 1 multiplied by 2 and multiplied by blah, 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 until 5, okay? And as a result, wherever the multiplication is, I should get that result.
Then you will write function.
120, okay, 120. So as a result, constant, again, why would I constant? Let result 1 is equal to, I need to type recursion multiply, just a function, right? And I need to provide this array 1. And inside this recursion function, I need to do something that as a result of console.log result 1 should display 120. But this recursion function needs to work as a
Yeah.
So we should not have some sort of a looping inside this recursion multiply.
No.
Let function recursion multiply an array. Okay. And what can I do over here? I need to somehow multiply those things.
Then you need to, I don't know, but it is kind of array. No, but you already have an array, but the recursion function has to be, you need to, it was calling itself like, but Azamat, why you stopped in the line 9? It is just function.
Why am I doing what?
You stopped. I mean, you have now because you will recursion multiply.
Mm-hmm.
You will write, and then you will multiply to Yeah, but yeah, the recursion multiply function that you created, the line 9, you are going to use the inside, and you're Maksat, you supposed to know.
First of all, I will give you the base case. Our base case is 120. If the tower, like the, for
No,
example,
base case, no, the result is 120. Base case is different.
okay, the base case is when the tower recursion has to stop.
Yes,
In
exactly. Yep.
that case, that our recursion will stop if he will like exceed more than our array numbers.
Exactly. If the length is basically
More
zero,
than this.
stop it. Yes.
Yeah. And then second, what I'm gonna do is I will multiply it that
The result 1.
the second number and call back again the same function with a different input just.
That is
Like
so basically in the first iteration, we can
0, 0, then the array 0 plus 1, and then array was the plus 2, plus 3.
so the starting point for our product, right? What's the what has to be the starting point? Usually when we have sum, if we try to find the sum of these numbers, we usually start with 0, right? But with the multiplication, we start from 1 usually most of the time. If you start with 0, then the answer will be always 0, right?
Yeah.
Multiplying with any number is going to be 0. So what we can do here, let product is equal to 1,
One.
right? Or just you can call it whatever you want.
Why do you
And
want
so as a return value out of this recursion, we can call another helper function. Okay?
okay?
Another helper function. That helper function will be
Need
defined here.
Helper input.
Yes. So this helper function will get,
argument.
of course, the array that we are getting over here, right? Initially. And as at the same time, it will get the product, initial value. Inside this helper function, this is where it gets interesting. We will just call this helper function inside itself. Okay, return helper function again itself, and we'll provide. Initially, we got this array, and we provided this array. Now for
Product.
yeah, basically product,
Product. Yeah.
right? Product will come,
Oh my God.
right? Product, and product, basically product multiplied by the array, the first item, right? We're multiplying 1 by 1 now. Now, when I call helper function again, I need to provide an array again. Now, in this case, this array would be the remaining array. So basically, I need to just slice it, starting from the first index. Helper, this array that slice, and starting from first index, and this product will come as a product right over here, because we're providing a product. But of course, for this helper function, it's just calling itself, and we need to put the base case for this guy right here. What's going to be the base case? If this array right here, right? Basically, we're slicing it this one, and in the next call, we're slicing it again, and in the next call, we're slicing it again, in the next call, we're slicing it again. But in the next call, there's nothing. The length is 0. Okay, so if the input, not input, array, if array dot length, okay, array dot length, if basically array dot length is 0, not 0 means true, right? So basically, if it's 0, then we would like to return the product itself. We're not multiplying anymore. We just would like to return the product itself. As a result, we get 120. But if I increase the number now to 6, it's going to be 720, right? It will just keep increasing it. So with the help of this helper function, we're calling this helper function inside itself multiple times until we hit the base case over here. This is our base case. Now this
But
base one right here, right? I think you guys can definitely do the addition. Who wants to do the addition? I have a function over here, recursion addition. Now I'm still getting the array. Yes. Let me get this guy over here, bring it right over here. I'm gonna make it result 2. And based on the whatever the addition of this result, it's going to be different for this one. Okay, result 2 and recursion addition, and we're providing this array 1. Okay, 1 plus 2 and plus 5, and whatever the result is. 3, 6, 10, 15. If it was just 5, okay, it's just 5, it's going to be 15. So what can we do over here, guys? The same thing, right? We can definitely use the helper function just like this. But in this case, it's not going to be product. You can just put the sum and start from 0. Okay, helper function. And of course, I need to have this helper function right over here. Okay, this helper function will get the array and at the same time the sum. Okay, so array, helper function, array, and we're providing the sum. Now in here, just like this over here, we can just copy paste the whole thing. Actually, right? We can just copy paste the whole thing right over here. The only thing we need to change is the product, the sum to product.
And plus.
And plus, exactly. And plus. And provide the product over here.
Azamat, I have a question. That our helper function should be outside of the recursion addition. It's like the separate function.
yeah, like
I saw that on the internet that they put the helper function inside our recursion addition. Like
You can, yeah, you can definitely put it inside the, like, you can just grab this guy function and cut it out and put it right here.
it's about the complexity, right? That's why you are like making separate. You don't want to make
No, it's not related to the time complexity though. Putting this function inside and outside, it's not related to the time complexity. It's just a preference. I mean, you keep inside this function and inside another function, it's just like simplicity purposes. But again, you can definitely put this function outside, or you can store this function in a utilities folder in a file and export it and import it and use it over here. Okay, but if you put it inside, then you cannot import or export this function. It has to stay inside.
it has to stay like global, right?
Yes, it has to stay inside this function only.
Okay. Actually, the slicing one means that it is actually like, for me it looks like like a loop every, but
Huh?
slicing is
So why we need it?
We're just having fun over here, David. Where have you been, man? You're so quiet today.
No, I've been listening. I'm just thinking the way I can use in it.
Just kidding. So for this one right here, okay, so I do have a project for you guys, right? It is, let me show it to you guys. I don't have a starter code, but I do have files folders demo. I thought I had this guy right here. This actually React application, and this was one of the interview questions by Amazon. And during our time, one of our co-students jumped into the Amazon interview really fast. Okay. We actually haven't finished the whole cohort yet, but he had a chance to go interview with the Amazon, and they asked him this question.
Did he pass?
No,
No. Okay.
no. This folder structure is created using recursion, right?
Wow,
This
it's
folder
really
structure
cool.
is created using recursion. But what I want from you guys, you don't have to worry about this clicking and displaying the child folders. What I want you guys want is to try to display something like this when you load up your components. And it is actually really easy there, okay? In each helper function, if it is, the data is like this. Let me show you guys the data. JSON data. It looks like this. It's an object initially, and the first one is named root that we see over here, root, the top, okay? And we have two child folders. So name is root, is folder, true, items is basically children, and children is public, and this public has another children items, and this SRC is another child of this root folder, and this SRC has lots of items. You guys see over here, right? This public is basically this public right here. They try to implement this guy right here on the left side. Public, SRC, components, data, blah, blah. This is basically our React project. They try to implement based on this data. You can definitely display such a thing like this, and you
Can we
guys can
do the React router?
What?
Can we do it with the React router?
No, I don't think so. It has, based on this data, it has to be done with the recursion.
Okay.
So back in the day, that guy tried to solve the problem with if-else statement. I mean, it definitely includes the if-else statement, but the thing is that if as you go deep, right? As you go deep, if this guy has children, then display this one, and then you're gonna go for each item. If this guy has a children, then display this one or not this one, and then you need to go back and do another if else. If this guy has a children, then run all of this, and if this guy has a children, and it just goes like a lot of repetitive code, right? Redundant code. So instead of doing that, this can be achieved by recursion. I mean, there's two options to display, guys. If it's a folder, right? If it's a folder, then display the contents like this. If inside this folder, if it's a file, just display this file icon and the name of the file. If it's a folder, then display this folder and name of the folder. And it will check if they have a children, if this folder has a children, okay? If it's a file, it's not gonna check if, because it's a file, it doesn't have a children. But if it's a folder, it will check for the children.
Can you please click the public folder? Okay, just make sure.
I
Cool.
will try to get that starter code for you guys. I think this one is, oh, wait a minute. Which one, what am I looking at? I think this one is finish it code. Yes, it is. It is a finished code. I will try to get you guys the starter code. And maybe this Netlify code so that you guys can take a reference to that, okay? But don't worry about this clicking thing, right? The starter code that I'm going to send does not include this clicking thing. It will just include maybe just this displaying a static version of this one.
So our task using the recursion, we have to have the same.
Yeah, but using the recursion, you guys need to run through this data that I'm going to provide to you guys, okay? Using the recursion. Based on this data, you guys need to display specific component or specific HTML tag. If it's a folder, then display the name of the folder and run like a maps, okay? Item.maps, because it's a folder. If it is regular file like this, name index is folder false, right? It's a file. Then just display the name. But if it's a folder, you have to run maps against items.
That is folder, it's our like the key.
Yes, it's folder. If it's true, then display this name first and run maps. But if it's not a folder, just display the name. That's it.
What do you mean by maps, like the how the function maps, you mean?
No. Array that map.
Yeah, the array that map. Okay.
Yep. I mean items that map.
Okay.
Okay. 743. I think. How about you guys get together and try to work on the thinking in React?
Okay. Is this one gonna be our homework?
This is going to be homework because I need to provide you guys the starter code.
Okay. Now we need to work with syncing. Okay.
Yep. Let's do that. Stop sharing.